Let's talk 100 years of vampy red nail polish, and we'll start with what was likely the first one ever, Peggy Sage Dark from around 1926. I did revive and swatch this beauty last year, and that revival got me featured in Allure, so I feel like I owe Miss Peggy big time for that. Now this shade wasn't the norm for the 20s, but Peggy Sage released a rainbow of colors in this line, and while liquid nail polish was in its infancy, Peggy tried everything, and Paris loved it. Americans, though, mostly wore vampy colors if they had a tan, and of course black women also wore them. Although this is anecdotal history, many black women have written to me that their grannies wore vampy shades when it wasn't trending, since it would complement their skin so well. Sadly, due to our history, there are very few sources that I found that detail what black women were wearing, so I appreciate when viewers tell me about their moms' and grannies' favorites, from times when they weren't considered by mainstream beauty brands. Now let's jump 20 years into the future, when vampy reds were in vogue and we were at war. I recently revived this Nailscraft Violet, which looked incredible. Duragloss was prolific in the 40s with deep reds, Eye of Cinnamon, which still needs to be revived, as well as Ebony. And unless these bottles get sun bleached, the cap swatches are pretty accurate. And as for Cutex, I have the shade Pippin as well as Black Red, which I did swatch on TikTok, I think back in 2023. In this Salute to Beauty ad page, several items were advertised. One of them was Cutex Black Red, where it says, "All rivals blacked out with Black Red, the most popular Cutex nail shade ever." But despite vampy shades having been so in, there were of course critics, most of them being men. During the war, many women were entering the workforce. In this article detailing interviewing tips, it says, most men dislike dark nail polish, so if you do put a fresh enamel on your nails, be sure it's a light shade. In this article giving dating tips, it says dark nail polish is disliked more than it is approved. In these two dating profiles, I found it funny that they mention their dislike of dark nail polish. I recommend pausing to read them as they made me laugh. Continuing on with a couple more examples. This is Gay Night by Cleanail, which is one of my favorite viewer gifts. This one has a satin finish and you can see it in my profile picture. And lastly, we have Chenyu Black Cherry, possibly my blackest red from the 40s. You're probably wondering why these shades were so popular amongst women despite the fact that many men did not like them. I theorize that with men at war, women had more opportunity at self-expression and control over their own purse strings as they entered the workforce. But the question is, why were women drawn to it? My theory is that it had a lot to do with the fact that red nail polish appeared blackened in black and white movies. Hollywood was incredibly influential, and women became accustomed to nails looking dark, and it took hold. Now let's jump 30 years into the future, to the 70s. I have this busted Biba bottle, and I don't even have the shade name, but you can see more or less that it was vampy. Biba had an incredible glam rock range in the 70s, so this one was pretty tame. I also have this High Shine wine from Max Factor, though it needs a revival. And then I have some vampy Mary Quants from London from around 1970. They need to be mixed a bit, but they don't lighten up much after doing so. They're in the shades Chestnut, Cranberry, and Damson. I'd love to someday have Choosy Cherry from this ad. And lastly, from the 70s, I have this Waltz swatch collection from my friend Yvonne. They had two nice vampy shades, numbered 331 and 317. The 70s trended very frosty and very earthy, and you can get a good idea of what was mainstream with this swatch collection. So I love that she sent me this. Let's jump 20 years into the future to 1994. If you were there, you'd likely remember the scramble when Chanel released Rouge Noir, or as the US market called it, Vamp. At the time, it seems like this was the first time this color trended, with how influential it was. Nail polish became hugely profitable for cosmetic companies, so after this polish came onto the scene, several dupes followed, and we saw several polish brands arise with fun colors like Hard Candy in 1995 and Urban Decay in 96. But I'll show you some of those dupes and a fun Buffy scene from their first episode where they referenced this polish. Here's Zoya Morticia. You'll notice many of these have spooky names on the same thread as Vamp. This is MAC Media. Revlon Pro's Deception. This was a salon bottle, but if you shopped in the drugstore, you could have gotten Revlon Vixen. Here's a Nail Savvy in the shade Deep Passion. Here's Creative Nail Designs, aka C&D's Bewitched. Hard candy had the shade called Normal, probably tongue-in-cheek referencing Vamp as being too popular or mainstream. Because I'm not kidding, every brand just about had a dupe for it. And then there was Wicked by Essie. Wicked is now a lot darker than it used to be in 1994. But now let's watch this scene from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I find it funny that Buffy is wearing Hard Candy Sky in this scene, which was the next It Girl polish, directly after Vamp in 1995.
We do have to test your coolness factor. You're from LA, so you can skip through it. Let's see. Vamp nail polish. Over? So over.
Now that it's over, let's jump to 2005 with the release of OPI's Linkin Park After Dark. I remember this being so popular in high school, all the popular girls were wearing it, which was surprising to me since they went from rhinestoned French manis to this. It looks almost black, but if I open it up, you can see some plumminess to it. I don't have any reactionary dupes for this since my collection focus stops a few years after the millennium, but I'm sure there were a few. When a color pops off, the market always follows. This bottle of Essie Wicked isn't from 2005, but that's about when we see it darken, because they were following the money. Wicked now is more Linkin Park After Dark than it is the Wicked of '94 on the far left. I just find these trend shifts to be so interesting. But let's move on to 2024. I only have one bottle because I only buy new polish for dupe videos. Death Valley Nails released Cherries Composted last fall, a beautiful vampy jelly formula. And I couldn't not mention Holo Taco's Devil's Advocate, released last fall as well. And just like that, we've experienced 100 years of vampy nail polish. I'd love to know which era of vamp you're most drawn to. Is there a specific one that maybe grabs you? Do you have memories from when any of these were trending? Let me know in the comments section, and if you haven't already, follow or subscribe to see more vintage nail content.